Bitches Club. Speaking of things you guys are doing, you have a wonderful podcast,
Thank
and
you.
you just had Miss Giudice on relatively recently, a few weeks
We
ago,
did.
whatnot. What anything you've learned? There's a lot of tree huggers listening. I sometimes call Teresa an animal, but it's not a negative term. She's our animal, but there are a lot of tree huggers listening. And anything you learned from Miss Giudice that you can tell
Well,
us?
first of all,
How was it?
it's Undressed with Paul and Patrik. We drop episodes on Wednesday nights at like Tuesday night at midnight. And this week we're dropping part one because we always do our episodes in two parts. Part one with Teresa Giudice. And it was really funny because she really just opened up with us. We were with her for 2 hours. We did 2 hour episode, and the
It's
producer
long.
afterwards was like, she doesn't stay on like with anybody that long, but we got along great.
She had three hard outs apparently in the middle of the entire conversation.
Dropped them all.
And she kept saying, "No, I'm staying with the boys. I love the boys. No, I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
No."
You know what I
Wow.
love about her is she was very candid. She was very open. She was very honest. And she really she opened up a lot. And
Can I say that her authenticity,
yes.
alongside paired with her transparency with us,
Yeah.
really gives you an insight to Teresa that I think a lot of us, through the lens, have never been able to break to see. But she was so genuine with us. But everybody is. I mean, you know us for so long, David.
Yeah.
She was so genuinely authentic.
Yes.
And she was able to really tap into certain aspects of her life that nobody's ever asked her about,
Mhm.
or she's never answered, or even acknowledged as a point of part that she's been in.
And you know what? Everyone always says that Teresa's so serious, so serious. She was so funny.
Oh,
She has a sense of humor.
She was great, right?
She was really fun.
I mean, she was great.
Now, there were a
Yeah.
couple topics off limits.
Which were a jail.
No,
No, we talked about it.
it was
She was
off.
totally open about it.
It was off limits, but
But
we
we
talked
talked about it.
I love when that happens. I've been there, done that.
Melissa,
When it's
Melissa
that's
Gorga off limits and Joe Gorga off limits.
We talked
We
about
talked about it.
And that's
I
what I mean.
I
I
could
think
see her not wanting to talk about the Gorgas and vice versa. It's
Yeah.
got to be annoying for both sides. It has to be.
But here's the thing, it wasn't the focus wasn't about her or them.
Right.
It was about the family
And relationships.
and the relationship
Yeah.
that seems to be tethered yet severed.
Yeah.
And that was a part of it, it's a heartbreak. It really, really is.
Well, it is because he's gone through it with his family.
Yeah,
My
so-
family's pretty close knit and together, but I think after his mother passed away, she was kind of the glue that held that family together. And I think after she left, that they just kind of all
You can kind of,
split.
I mean, it was just, I'm telling you, if you hadn't fallen ever in love with Teresa, you're
You
gonna
will.
fall in love with her in
Yeah.
such a different way that
Yeah.
you're gonna go, who is this Teresa? This is the Teresa I love.
Yeah.
Well, in our first chat together, which is in God help us all 2020, we talked about your estranged family, Paul.
Yeah.
We touched upon that in our first chat. Anyone that wants to go listen could DM me because that is from 2020, from the archives.
We don't ever
2020 is when we did our first with you.
we
Oh,
don't
Or
we don't
20.
talk-
We
wow,
don't.
you're
don't-
right.
give it any light.
Yeah.
Because there's none to give.
Although she did move in the neighborhood near us.
We're not giving it light.
But we're not
What?
giving. Yeah,
Oh.
she's not
I
in
didn't-
Orange County anymore.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
There you go. Well, did Teresa say anything about the future of RHONJ? Because Margaret Joseph's apparently rumor was in the Gucci out. First of all, I've broken up with Gucci, so I don't know why anyone is in any Gucci outlet. But she was in the Gucci outlet in the Woodbury Commons, and the rumor is, and this is a big rumor, that somebody overheard her telling Jennifer Aiden, sweetie, the show is never coming back. And then someone's in my DM saying, these are the three housewives I was at lunch with, and this one's like a family member. I promised this listener of mine I wouldn't mention the three housewives, but this is like my sister, this housewife, and she says the show's not coming back. So Was that topic off limits? And what did Teresa say about the future of RHONJ?
No, it wasn't off limits, and it was very
Revealing.
interesting.
I,
Very
I think I
interesting.
think when you listen, you're going to be able to draw your own conclusion
Yeah.
and identify with exactly what's going to be happening. And it's going to be happening pretty soon. By the end of the year,
Mhm.
you're going to recognize that there's a movement.
Paul did her coffee reading, her Armenian coffee cup reading, and
And
really it was number one, spot on. It was an amazing read, and some really cool stuff came up in that cup that she acknowledged.
As a matter of fact, she started a podcast,
Yeah.
turning
mhm.
tables.
Yep.
And
We're on that too.
we're
Yeah.
on her podcast as well. We're one of the first ones on her podcast.
This week, I think. Yeah.
And when you see her podcast, you're gonna see the coffee read.
Yeah.
And part of the coffee read was about some of the things that a lot of people didn't know about, that reveals a lot of details into she had no control whether to acknowledge or not because it was revealed. So you're going to see an insight to what's happening.
What I will say is, look it, they brought RHONJ back as a reboot, all new people, and it failed. It didn't work. So take that under, what the future lies. They already know they can't do it.
I agree with you. I don't think it's going to be a reboot. And by the way, I always point to that, and I point to Atlanta. Atlanta was on pause for 8,000 months,
I know.
and they had the choice to do a reboot, and they did not do it. So as soon as Atlanta didn't reboot all the way, I was like, they're never doing a reboot again. I agree with that. It didn't work. It didn't work. We have a total disaster on our hands.
I think this whole RHONJ season was just. I don't even think many people watched it. I don't think it was very. I don't know. There was just so much.
I don't know if people that are used to the organic and the originals, the OGs, where the authenticity is different than when you're editing yourself to be able to present an aspect of who you are on television, knowing how to be able to navigate that, but it doesn't work. When you're in front of the camera, you have to be your authentic self.
Correct.
And, seeing how things operate and work, that you're not sure what they're going to capture and what's going to end up on the editing room floor. But if you're not your original self, it shows through. People see through the lens.
Well, okay, Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. They are coming after Kyle for not being authentically herself after how many years on the show. And that's the formula. The formula that works is when you are really doing things. You have a real career. You have a real husband. Your husband's cheating, not cheating, whatever. But the real things that are happening off camera come in. You break that wall, and then that comes into the show. That's where the exciting part of the story is. It was a huge hit with Scandival, and I think that they realized that.
You know what the crazier thing is? People don't realize when the cameras are on, they're only there to capture your real life.
Right.
You're not supposed to put on a show.
Yeah.
It's not about putting on a party. You do this naturally.
Yeah.
So everything that happens organically is what the cameras are there to capture because they're just another person in the room.
Right.
And they are rebooting Vanderpump completely. So I guess I shouldn't say we'll never have a reboot again, but it is different because that is a true business where a new group of people work.
Right.
We are going to have Lisa and probably Peter. So it is different than a whole new group of women that don't. Well, I mean, people watched RHONJ at the end. I mean, now that it came and gone and the whole thing with Bryn and Uba.
Yep.
And, that got me to watch. I didn't watch and now I watch. So I think it's coming back. Jeff Lewis, you say Patrik, I get a DM. Don't think you guys are not here because of Jeff Lewis. There are many more interesting topics to talk about, but there are some things, unfortunately, that relate to Mr. Lewis this week of us recording. Jeff Lewis says, I feel vindicated. He's like, Bryn called me a pig. I made a statement that, I think she's supplemented. I don't know where her money comes from, which I say here all the time. And Jeff is like, I never called her a prostitute. Having a supplemental income could mean your parents help you out, a family member helps you out, you have a great boyfriend you're madly in love with who lives 5 states away, who's worth millions of dollars. He's like, I never called you a prostitute. He's like, This is what you did to Uba. You made up a whole story, and Jeff Lewis said he feels